Welcome to Integrated Skills Group. Integrated Skills Group is the thinking person's guide to full spectrum self-reliance. This is Aaron, and again, I'm joined today with George. If you remember from episode 4, George joined us to talk about life as a child during the Civil War in Lebanon. Today, we have George back because there's some developments going on there that we want to talk about, kind of bring to our audience and discuss how these things happen, what's going on, what are the signs, and what are the things that you can do about them. So, George, go ahead and let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Lebanon right now.
All righty. Thank you, Aaron, for having me again on your wonderful podcast. It's always a privilege and an honor to be there. Just a small introduction about myself. My name is George Fahmy. I'm a personal protection consultant and firearm instructor based in Beirut, Lebanon. I grew up during the Lebanese Civil War. I was born in 1980. The Lebanese Civil War started in 1975 and it ended officially in 1990. But like they say, the war rages on inside people's heads and people's hearts. And what basically happened is none of the original reasons, none of the original issues that Lebanon has a country when it was founded in 1948 were ever resolved, even after the Civil War was completed. It's a festering mess of confessionalism, civil unrest, economic issues, have versus have-nots. You add to it, of course, that we live in a very volatile region. Lebanon is basically surrounded. We have in the east and in the north, we got Syria. In the south, we got Israel and the Palestinian territories. And in the west, we got the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and Cyprus, which, to be honest, they're the only people who haven't fucked with us yet, which is awesome. And hopefully we'll keep it that way.
Sure.
So,
I think last time we talked, we were discussing how the unrest in Syria was kind of spilling into Lebanon, and it goes to show how these regional things can exacerbate problems that are latent within a government. So,
sure. Don't forget that we're at the crossroad of empires. We're basically a very interestingly strategic location because it allows. The Israelis are at war with the Syrians, right? The Syrians are at war with the some elements of their population, which started peaceful protests, which became weaponized by the injection of jihadi elements, either homegrown or, when I say homegrown, meaning the actual Syrian government injected jihadi elements to make the peaceful resistance a non-resistant so they could crush them. What they basically also encouraged in the 80s, but this time it grew out of hand, and everybody started like messing around with the situation. So they're having a lot of issues. And if it wasn't for Hezbollah's intervention at first, and then Russia's intervention in the Syrian civil war, the Assad government would have basically been toppled a long time ago. So Hezbollah is a Lebanese militant group. Sometimes you can say they're a terrorist group. Some people say they're resistance fighters, depending on what side of the fence you're on. If you're on the fence, you don't care what they have. You just basically understand that it's an armed group that almost has monopoly of power. When I say power, I mean military might in Lebanon. They're stronger than the Lebanese army. They're stronger than any Arab army, and they're on par with the Israelis in terms of combat effectiveness.
Sure. I think we have a tendency to think of Hezbollah as just a group of ragtag irregulars who aren't particularly cohesive or powerful, and they're just kind of a thorn in Israel's side. But you were telling me that the truth is that they're extremely well financed and far better organized than it seems.
The thing with Hezbollah is that when it started as a schism in the Amal movement, which was a Shiite movement for the Mizrahi and people who were like basically tread upon by everyone in South Lebanon. So they were very poor. They were peasants. They were not landowners, and the Shia who were landowners basically used them. So they didn't educate them. They didn't give them any hope, any schooling, etc. So what happened is in 1979, you had the Iranian Revolution and the creation of the Islamic Revolution, the Islamic Republic of Iran. What happened is they started sending feeders to try to basically get to export their revolution, a bit like the communists did when they started doing the stuff in Africa, most notably Angola, when they used the Cubans. Probably the same thing happened here. But what happened is they got rid of the spiritual founder of the Amal movement, the Iranians, did some shady deals with the Libyans, and they basically had him killed when he was in Libya. He disappeared. What happened is Hezbollah got taken over by the current Speaker of the House, Nabih Berri, who is super corrupt. Like he's a gazillionaire, if that's a word. The thing is, what happened is the Islamic Republic of Iran started targeting the more religious Shia that were part of the Amal movement. And they're fairly religious, but they're not like as religious as the Iranian wants them to be. So what happened is they sent some mullahs. They actually opened some madrasas here, and they started talking about the Khomeini's vision for having a Shia jurisprudence of the faithful in the entire Middle East. So it's like the caliphate, but for Shias. And something got created, which became called Islamic Jihad. Islamic Jihad then attracted talents. And when I say talents, I mean like for them, it's a talent. For us, it's like, fuck, it's a terrorist, right? And they basically attracted high-level people from who were Shia, but from the Palestine Liberation Organization. And that's where Imad Moghniye came from. He was in Yasser Arafat's protective detail, and he was really good with terrorism, explosives, and stuff like that. And he basically joined Islamic Jihad. In 1983, we all know what happened to the US Marine barracks in Lebanon. Yes. 249, if I'm not mistaken, lost their lives. And that was the first official operation by Imad Moghniye. And what happened is Islamic Jihad changed its name to Hezbollah. Hezbollah in Arabic means the party of God. And it comes from a surah in the Quran that says, وَأَنَّ حِزْبُ اللَّهِ هُمُّ الْغَالِبُونَ. And it means, and the party of God shall be victorious. So this is where they got their name, and this is their official motto. So most people say, Hezbollah is a Lebanese resistance movement. I was, yeah, sure, it's a Lebanese resistance movement, but you should not forget that it's a religious movement that is very cult-like. They're extremely paranoid about spies. They're extremely paranoid about any foreign intervention, any foreign interference in their business. And they are basically Iran in Lebanon. People say, oh, it's a Lebanese party. No, bullshit. And if you listen to the news, Hassan Nasrallah himself, the spiritual guide of Hezbollah, said, our money comes from Iran, our religious scholars come from Iran, our allegiance is to Iran. So basically, this is, if it looks like a duck, it's quacked like a duck, it's a duck, right?
Yeah, and that certainly explains a lot more in why they have such an axe to grind with Israel and vice versa.
Sure. Yeah, of course, because Iran says death to America, death to Israel. Yeah, Hezbollah repeats the same thing.
Sure.
But the thing is, Hezbollah is used as a trump card in the area. Iran needs to have something to actually show the faithful that we're fighting Israel, and this is the best thing they have. Next best thing is nuclear weapons. In case they do get nuclear weapons, which I doubt they will, and if they do have them, they'll have to sacrifice Hezbollah. And this is why you never know what happens with secret negotiations between the US and Iran. I am pretty sure that Donald Trump is trying to have a deal with the Iranians, telling them, okay, guys, you want nukes? You can get nukes, but you're going to have to sacrifice Hezbollah. Or you keep Hezbollah, but you won't have nukes. So I think this is what's going on behind the scenes. Anyway, this is like geopolitics. It doesn't really matter to us, but what matters is Hezbollah grew from a small guerrilla warfare, a small guerrilla group into a semi-conventional army then went into Syria in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, and they basically learned on the go how to basically crush an insurgency in a different country with, although it's the same language, most of the population of Syria is Sunni. Hezbollah is Shia, and the Alawites are basically an offshoot of Shia Islam. They're the leaders of Syria, like the Assad family. Everybody in power is Alawite. And you actually have this, we're here to help our brothers and sisters who are also Shia to protect themselves against the jihadis, which are the Sunnis.
Right.
So what happened is Hezbollah gained an amazing counterinsurgency experience. They lost thousands of men. They lost a lot of people, and a lot of the people who died were experienced fighters fighting Israel, which is a big loss for them. But at the same time, they gained something that is significant, and it's counterinsurgency tactics. And the only way you'll be able to defeat something is to actually know how to do this particular thing. So when you become a good counterinsurgent, you also become a better guerrilla fighter and a better infiltrator. So this is a big threat for the Israelis, because if Hezbollah ever decides to create and sustain sleeper cells in Israel, there is no way the Israelis can root them out if they haven't mastered this methodology of counterinsurgency. And the Israeli at the moment, they're not interested in doing counterinsurgency. They're just doing counterterrorism operation in Gaza, which is not the same thing as counterinsurgency operations. Because if you bomb the shit out of a village, you send troops in, you occupy it for a while, and then you leave, and you keep a small garrison, and your garrison starts getting killed, you have not completed counterinsurgency tactics. You're basically just working as a garrison, and it doesn't end well. You're defensive. If you're defensive, eventually you're gonna get killed. Yeah. So this is the reason this is a big problem for us in terms of as Lebanese, is that Hezbollah can take over any area in Lebanon right now, because they're better than the Lebanese army. The Lebanese army cannot fight them. The Lebanese army may even break off into different groups. Some will go with Hezbollah because they're Shia. Some will go with the Christians. Some will go with the Druze. Some will go with the Sunnis. So basically what happened during the Civil War. Number one. Number two is any local insurgency against Hezbollah will be utterly crushed. Unless Hezbollah is weakened economically, politically, spiritually, and attacked from outside at the same time. So this is the issue with Hezbollah. The reason why I'm going to all this detail is to get to the Lebanon update. Right now, what happened in Lebanon is Bashar al-Assad in Syria, the president of Syria, he basically saw what Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, did basically when he had all his relatives and the richest people in the kingdom arrested and put into the Ritz-Carlton, and he basically ransomed the shit out of them, taking all their monies and using it to basically continue the war in Yemen, and basically injecting currency into the Saudi economy, which was becoming. So what happened is Bashar al-Assad saw this as a very interesting ploy, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do this to my own people, because most of the Syrian regime apparatchiks basically left Syria and put their monies they had, which is in US dollars, they put them in Lebanon, in the Lebanese banking system. Mm-hmm. And all their families came and bought stuff in Lebanon. What happened is Bashar al-Assad said, okay, I want my money back. And he's not going to have them transfer the money to him, because you cannot transfer money to Syria. Syria is on the sanction list, same with Iran. So what happened, I'll jump on another tangent in a moment, explaining how Hezbollah saved the Iranian government from collapse in a moment, right? Just remind me about this, because this is quite interesting to what's going to happen in the region and what's happening in the US right now. So what happened is Bashar al-Assad had Hezbollah strong arm all the Syrian regime heads and top shots who were living in Lebanon and had money in Lebanon, and he basically had Hezbollah kidnaps them and brings them to Syria along with all their US dollars in cash. So if you can imagine $30 billion in cash, actually not 30, but let's say, let's be conservative here, and let's say $500 million in cash that was in Lebanese banks as reserves, got withdrew over a couple of months and was shipped by land to Syria by truck. So you're actually talking physical money is going. It's not like just numbers, right? It's not like digital. It's not like zeros and ones on a computer screen. It's actual real money. What happened when this happened is we started having a cash crisis because the wheat, the fuel, every medical equipment that we have in Lebanon, a lot of technology, a lot of stuff that we actually consume in Lebanon is actually paid for in US dollars, because Lebanon is one of the few countries in the world where we have two currencies that actually work side by side. You got the Lebanese pound, which is worth 1,500 1,500 liras is worth $1, and you got the US dollar. And so you either pay stuff in dollars or you pay stuff in USD. But most stuff that you're buying from abroad is in US dollars. Wheat, medicine, medical equipment, electricity. And I'll get to electricity, why. It's quite sad, to be honest. So when you have this outflow of cash and reserves are almost non-existent anymore, and you have like payments to make. You got fuel companies going on strike. You got hospitals running low on medical supplies and equipment. You got people who have to pay bills in US dollars. So you start having you start brewing the perfect storm, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So add to it the problems that we as Lebanese face as civilians. First of all, Lebanon, the average monthly salary in Lebanon is around $550 to $600. That's around 900,000 Lebanese pounds. Now, the problem with that is that an average cell phone bill is $50 per month. And regular electricity, because it's on and off every 4 hours, you only get like 8 hours a day of electricity. You need to pay for generators, like backup generators that are owned by people. Most of them are corrupt politicians who actually charge you money for this stuff. So let's say you're paying around $80 a month for this stuff. You also have to pay for satellite, like cable stuff, and it's all piracy. You don't actually pay like Netflix and stuff like that. It's pirated stuff. One guy buys it and he basically splits it and sells it to other people. You have the gas, which is extremely expensive. We're talking about a gallon for maybe a bit around $17 or $16. You have absolutely no transportation system that is worthwhile. You have like cabs and buses and shit, but it's buses and stuff. It's not a proper transportation system. You got crappy roads, and most importantly, even though the income tax is fairly low, around 10%, you have to pay for medical insurance. That's around $8,000 a year. You got to pay for education, and if you want to put your kids, I'm talking about kindergarten in a good school, that's gonna cost you $3,000 to $5,000 a year.
Man. So
university, a good university like the one I went to, like Lebanese American University, for a bachelor in business administration, I'm not talking like doctor, like becoming like a medical doctor or an engineer. For a bachelor in business administration, that's gonna cost you around $50,000 for 3 years. So an average salary is around $8,000, $8,200, right? And that's not taking into account groceries, taking care of meds, taking care of your family, etc., etc. So we got the salary of a emergent third world country, and I'm not talking about Lebanon, I'm talking like an emergent African third world country, or let's say India, or maybe we can even say South Africa, but we got the living cost of living in the UK.
What does that do to the debt held by the population? Because, as this conversation goes on, we're going to be talking a little bit about the financial implications.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about, what does the average debt look like for the Lebanese citizen?
Right now, we're indebted to 150% of our GDP.
Man,
that's a fucking big ass number.
Yeah, right.
Lebanese live on debt. They live on credit. They live on credit. They get married on credit. You imagine a guy whose monthly salary is $1,000, who has a wedding that cost him $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
He pays for it over 10 years, and he still does not own a house, because what happened is, and this is, I'm jumping into a small tangent, but it's part of the issue. You have a housing bubble crisis. Most people are forced to rent, and the average rent for a house in Beirut is $700.
So you're going that every month because the housing itself is more than
it's more than your salary. It's more than the average salary. And the thing is, you had housing grants by the government, by the central bank, that you can actually buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, and this is one of the tangents I mentioned before. A couple of years ago, when Trump started putting sanctions on Iran, Iran could not sell any oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had Hezbollah, basically, and their cronies in Lebanon, basically take fictional loans from banks in US dollars to buy houses and buy land, which they didn't. It was all fake. And they actually shipped the money to Iran. Add to this, you got states in the US where you have a huge Shiite Lebanese population. You got Michigan, right? Michigan, especially Dearborn. Dearborn is in Michigan, right? I'm not talking about, Dearborn. And you also got Detroit. It's also in Michigan, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so those two cities, everybody, if you ask anyone who's controlling the illegal drug trade, the used car salesman, the used car sales, the cigarette trade, on the black market cigarette trade, they'll say it's the Lebanese, and specifically it's people from Hezbollah.
Well, that's been the American criminal syndicate model for as long as we've been a country. There's always been people who've come from a country of origin, taken up a trade in the black market or syndicated crime, and used that money to finance their relatives or their respective political affiliations and things like that. So it makes perfect sense that would be going on, especially considering the amount of pressure that North Africa and the Middle East have been putting on the petrodollar, which I think is tie pretty cleanly into the economic crises that are unfolding in that region.
Yeah. So what you see is you also have a lot of politicians in Lebanon who basically they were war criminals, so they're used to basically stealing, raping, killing, kidnapping, extorting people, lying. Obviously, if they're criminals, they also lie, right?
Yeah.
It goes without saying. So those people, after the Civil War ended, became politicians because, hey, they don't know how to do anything useful. So I don't know anything. I'm a politician, right? Imagine Bernie Sanders types, but actually like worse.
Very criminal as opposed to just on the skim.
Yes, so very criminal as opposed to being a total lunatic that doesn't know shit about his own planet, right? So the thing is, those people have been bleeding the government's funds dry for fucking almost 30 years, man.
Yeah.
So, And it's the same parties, it's the same people. So what happened is on October 15th this year, like a couple of months back, not even a couple of months back, like a month and a half, actually, yeah, almost a month back. What happened is they were not able to basically write the budget for 2020. And they said, we need to raise taxes because we don't have any money. Well, you know, if you're a fucking hooker for $16 million, like the prime minister did, of course you're gonna be fucking broke. You don't fuck.
Yeah,
but
right.
The thing is, it's not just him. Like everybody fucking stole. Like it's like I'm giving you a bag filled with diamonds, and I tell you, you know what? Count the damn diamonds. Let me know how many diamonds you have. I don't know how many diamonds we have inside. And then I come back after 20, 30 years. And I ask about the bag, and you say, "Oh, it was this small box, right? And there was only like 3 diamonds in it, right? I kept them for you, right?" People went fucking nuts. But the thing, the straw that broke the camel's back was when they wanted to fucking tax WhatsApp calls, and because like regular calls are expensive in Lebanon, like it's like 30 cents a minute. I'm talking US dollars here. What happens is people talk to their friends, send messages, everything using WhatsApp or Telegram, but mostly WhatsApp. Like 95% of people here use WhatsApp. 3% use Telegram, 1% uses Viber, and 1% weirdos use stuff that nobody fucking heard about, like Wire and Signal, and I don't know what.
Yeah.
So like super techie nerds use this stuff, but most people, including me, I use WhatsApp, right? So the government wanted to tax WhatsApp calls. So imagine it's like the government saying, I'm gonna charge you for every oxygen breath that you take.
It's not far from it. It blows my mind how, you know, a service that's already so inflated in terms of cost that they could look at that and say, well, yeah, that's something we could tag another cost and tax onto, and nobody will really notice. I mean, when you get to something like communications, which frankly, communications went through a phase where it was probably pretty optional. You could write letters or not 150 years ago. But now you can't operate in a modern society without a cell phone. You can't do many of the things that society requires of you without constant communication. And if you're not in on that, it's an easy way to lose out on any opportunity that might come your way, let alone just the enjoyment of being able to communicate with people. So, yeah, it seems like such a terrible idea, you know, just sitting here talking. But it's
a totally retarded idea. It's like me coming and telling you, you know what? Every time you fuck your wife, you're gonna pay the government $1,000. Really seriously? So what happened is people went nuts, and this is the first time in Lebanese history that people from all sects, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all religions went together on the streets with Lebanese flags, not party flags, not militia flags, just Lebanese flags, and told the government, fuck off, you old bastards.
Yeah.
And what happened is roads have been blocked, burning tires, traffic has been impeded. People couldn't get to work. I couldn't get to work for at least a week. You couldn't, and people were demonstrating. The prime minister, after considerable street pressure, resigned. And when the prime minister of Lebanon resigns, the entire government resigns. They're forced to resign, right? So we don't have a government anymore. Of course, the same ministers are still going to the office and they're still finalizing, like they're still working, but there is no government, there are no consultations. Everything is on hold, right? First thing they did, of course, to fuck the good law-abiding citizens is they suspended concealed carry licenses. Because unlike the US, in Lebanon, it's a privilege. It's not a right to actually conceal carry. And all those who conceal carry expensive guns like Glocks got fucked. Because if you get arrested with a Glock 19, which is a big-ass gun, even for people who are like 6 feet tall, you'll get it will be confiscated, and you will be sentenced to a military court. because Ministry of Defense issues licenses here. So people who are smart, like me, conceal carry the Makarov, which is a slim pistol, and that only costs you $1,000, and that you can it totally disappears, appendix carry. Or Glock 43s, but cost $5,000, so 99% of people don't own them. Glock 26 costs $4,000, so again, 90% of people can't afford it and carry it. So yeah, most people stop carrying. All this happened because one dumbass demonstrator who was a Shia from the south. I am not sure if he was a agent provocateur, and he fucking carried a CZ Phantom. You know the CZ Phantom? It's like a Glock 34 size, big ass grip and everything. Yeah, he carried it, and it showed. And the army saw it. They arrested his ass. They confiscated the gun. They slapped him around. They sentenced him to military court, which is not fun because you can't appeal this. You get sent to jail. It's not fun, and everybody got fucked.
He didn't actually even commit a crime. He was just caught carrying it. He wasn't even carrying out an act of violence or anything.
No. He was just carrying it, but because he's a dumb fuck, he carried it behind the hip without a holster, without a belt, so it printed like crazy.
Yeah, right, and that was enough to have the
because I'm gonna give you like a small information about Lebanon. Concealed carry in Lebanon means concealed. If it prints, it's considered how do you call it in the US?
Open carry.
No, not even open carry.
Oh, brandishing.
Yes, that's it, brandishing. Oh. Yeah, and most people who work in military intelligence and secret police, they carry big ass guns behind their hip, and but they're not supposed to. But because they're part of government, nobody tells them that you're not allowed to brandish the gun. But they caught this dumbass, and basically everybody else pays the price. So I got friends who had Glock 26 and Glock 19s. Everyone stored them away and started carrying like shitty .25, .22 revolvers or semi-autos, inexpensive guns like CZ50s, 70s that are really pieces of shit, but they're small and compact. So yeah, I got a friend of mine who has like the most expensive gun in Lebanon, which is the HK VP9, most expensive in Lebanon because it costs $6,000 in Lebanon. He actually bought my J-frame, and he carries my J-frame now because Model 36 totally disappears under your if you have a little bit of flap, right?
Sure. So. And this is something that I think people should pay attention to. One of the things that we talk about all the time at ISG is simple, common, effective weapons that are not overly modified. And for the most part, we typically advocate, hey, this is what you should have something like this to train with, because in the instance that you find yourself in a different country or in an unfamiliar area during an emergency, you'll know how to pick it up and run it effectively. But another unspoken avenue here is that when it comes to situations like this where you have a rolling boil socially in terms of the dynamics and things are getting tense, so you don't really want to be unarmed, but you can't risk losing a $5,000, $6,000 Gucci gun, as everybody's calling it. It's stupid to have them. They're just a mantelpiece at that point. And so the people who are relying on those need to really kind of shift their focus, in my opinion, and think more in terms of, hey, is this practical in all situations?
Yes, and this is where I want to basically give you a small tip. Even though carrying handguns is now illegal, as well as military type rifles like AKs and M4s, M16s, etc., it is still perfectly legal to carry a shotgun for hunting if you have registered this particular shotgun as a hunting shotgun, and you have the license that allows you to carry it. Mind you, I'm not saying a hunting license. I'm saying a carry license for shotguns that are used for hunting.
Yeah.
So I got a Mossberg. I got a Mossberg 500, right? Awesome gun I got from a friend. It had a big ass barrel. I had my gunsmith shorten the barrel until it's basically like 10 inches or something, because we don't have any issues with size of the weapon here. We only have like, is it a hunting rifle? Is it a military handgun, meaning any handgun that is rifled? Is it an assault rifle, meaning any rifle that uses that's not bolt action, and that uses military cartridges like 7.62, 5.45, 5.56, 308, 303 British, 30.06, etc., right? Or even like pistol calibers. Those are illegal, but a hunting rifle is not illegal.
So hunting rifles are both legal?
Yeah, it's the only gun that you can buy in Lebanon that is absolutely fucking legal. It's hunting rifles, and it's basically, sorry, I have to rephrase. It's hunting shotguns, because you cannot actually buy any rifles any shotgun that is rifled. So you only have smoothbore rifles.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Which effectively makes them, inaccurate.
Sure. Plus, I had my gunsmith install a Choate tool folding stock on my Mossberg, and drill and tap in a fiber optic, red fiber optic on the front side. So now I have a small rifle that takes basically 5 rounds in the tube and 1 in the chamber. Okay, of course I keep it cruiser ready, meaning loaded tube, not loaded barrel. I basically have it in a bag. I cover it with a jacket, and it's in my car. And I have I have like a drop leg dump pouch that has maybe 25 double buck in it and 10 slugs. So I think it's enough, right? In case I get into a situation where I have to run and gun, I think I can pretty much manage this stuff. Enough to go home, right? Where I have the heavy artillery, right?
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things that we've used for years now as justification to have and know the shotgun is it doesn't really matter if you think it's better than an M4 or not. It's universally recognized as a hunting tool, and you can get a pump action or a double-barreled shotgun almost anywhere in the world.
True.
It's just ubiquitous. So not knowing how to run one makes you a liability. Really, you should know how to have a shotgun stored in cruiser ready, like you said, and then know how to cycle it, load it, and do those things quickly and efficiently. So, like you say, if you're caught in a situation where the government has said, look, all of your cool guy shit is now illegal. Step out of the house with it and be seen, and you're going to military court. You can still have a shotgun. Most places will still allow you to do that. And I think, in the States especially, a lot of people consider gun bans as like the ultimate evil. But really, there's something more insidious at play, and that is if they can make it taboo to have those weapons out in public, people won't be able to train with them. And if they can't train with them, be effective, and that's enough. You really don't need to disarm the population if they don't know what the hell they're doing with their tools. So,
true.
And being able to run a shotgun is a good proxy for that. So you can get out, you can still be training, and you can have your stuff hidden away. And as I understand it, in Lebanon, you guys have kind of a de facto state of gun control, but it's not really enforceable.
It's not possible to enforce because every freaking house in Lebanon has at least 1 AK.
Right. So pay attention.
I know. And when I say an AK, I'm not talking about this SN9 SN9 sissified semi-auto. I'm talking select fire AKs.
Right.
Military select fire AKs coming straight from Russia, Poland, Bulgaria, China, East Germany, blah, 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 right? Every gun that you have in Lebanon, everything that you can acquire in Lebanon is basically full auto, right? And I'm not talking about, and I'm not actually even mentioning the fact that you can buy RPGs, you can buy RBKs, you can buy PKMs, you can buy Dragunovs, you can buy GP25, GP30, GP34s. Those are the underbarrel grenade launchers. You can buy grenades, but those will create more of a headache when you get arrested at an army barrage or a police barrage, and they say, "What the hell do you have in your car?" And you show them your field carry license that says ultimate gun license, which was the one I got, which says non-specific pistol, non-specific rifle. But that does not include fucking like machine guns, right? Or sniper rifle or explosives, right? So those are going to create a lot of headache for you, which is something that if you need it, meaning that if you're alone, not part of a political party or a militia, and when I say militia, I mean a gang of thugs, or at least a political party with an armed branch, you need this stuff because you never know what's going to happen. Let's say that a gang of thugs or a militia or a political party that is opposed to you in every aspect, like morally, politically, etc., that they take over your neighborhood and they start doing house to house and executing people who are against them. Well, if you have a GP30 underneath a AK-74M with a good scope, I am pretty sure that if you only have 10 grenades, you can basically massacre a bunch of people, at least 100 strong, if you know how to work urban guerrilla tactics or counter insurgency tactics. And those are not skills that you learn like, oh, I'm a terrorist, I'm learning this stuff in like the Bekaa Valley or in Nicaragua or whatever. No, it's a basic understanding that it's all about sound signature. It's all about not staying in the same place where you shoot at people. And most importantly, not shooting at people from your fucking veranda.
Yeah, right.
Because this is it's not going to be cool, right?
Right. Way to get yourself and your family killed. But,
sure.
So we started down a brief side alley that I would like to go back to really quick, and you were talking about checkpoints. So checkpoints tie directly into mobility, and that's a big thing for us at ISG because we view the ability to move kind of like the ability to communicate. 100 years ago, you could live in your town your whole life, and that was okay. Now we are so interconnected and we're so centralized. Like we have hyperdense cities with no domestic production of resources. That movement really, especially in emergencies, it's mandatory. You have to be able to. So talk to us a little bit about how this. Because you've mentioned a little bit that, protesters have taken to the streets. They're burning things. They're, I don't know, would you say that they're attacking cars?
No, they're not attacking cars. There's absolutely no way you can get to whatever you're getting with a vehicle unless you know all the side roads and all the small alleys. And this is where having a vehicle that allows you to jump, like that actually allows you to go through small streets. So we dump the big ass SUV and the fucking Jeep because it may not go through alleys. So it's good to have like a small vehicle that is robust enough to get through those areas. So if you're looking at so you forget about the H3, the Hammer H3, that you forget about it. So if what you may want is a small Land Cruiser or a small Jeep, a Lada maybe, if you're into cheap sold cars that are always broke but never break.
How about dealing with?
Sorry. But the most important thing and a crucial skill, and I actually experienced this myself because I had to get somewhere, but I couldn't get there by car because the traffic was horrendous. And also, you need to be able to fuel your car, and because we're having like a liquidity crisis, USD crisis, gas stations are not actually buying gas, and they're not able to actually fill your tanks, or if they're putting restrictions on how many gallons you can actually fill your car with. This is where the beauty of having a bike, especially if it's a cross-country bike, this is where it really shines. This is a really good skill to have.
Yeah, so I think bicycles are very underrated in terms of where you can get in the city.
Yes.
The only problem is, I know that you're in a similar situation to me, and that is if you have children, it's a lot more difficult to manage movement on a bicycle.
True. One of the things that is very important to remember, and I'm opening up a small tangent, just quickly, is that Hezbollah, when they did their attack on Beirut back in 2008, May 7, 2008, if I remember, yes. Then when they actually invaded Beirut and they crushed using military might the supporters of the Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri against them because they wanted to cut Hezbollah telecommunications. Hezbollah took this as an affront against them and as a existential crisis. They basically sent couples, not couples, but two people on a bike, like a duo, like a team of two people, like hunter killers. Yep. One was an AK, that was the driver, and the other guy was an RPG. And this is what they actually used. They started going in quickly into alleys, and they basically stopped people. And they also used this tactic effectively against Israelis when they were in the south. So it's a pretty good way to get in and out of a situation. Unload what you have to do, hit and run tactics, shoot the fuckers, get back on the bike, or just jump back on the bike and drive away. You actually, if you look at what the Russians are using in Syria, they're using a lot of buggies, special forces buggies and cross bikes, and this is it. It's something that's quite interesting because it allows them to move quickly across all type of terrains, whether it's mountainous, desert terrain, like lush terrain, etc., etc. Of course, some terrain is easier than other, but I think it's a quite useful skill to be able to ride a bike, especially a motorbike, because regular bikes, I mean, even if you have the ones with all the gears and shit, you're not probably going to be able to go further than 40 kilometers per hour, 50 kilometers per hour, right?
Right.
So, yeah, your ability, if you watch World War Z, the movie, I know it's crap, but one of the things that Brad Pitt says in it, he said, "Movimiento es vida." So movement is life. If you're able to move, you're going to be able to live. If you're stuck in place, you may not live. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot survive in place. A lot of people actually survive in place, but this requires skills and stuff. So
right. That actually is a good segue into one of our next topics, and that is, sheltering in place is a great way to invite hardship and resiliency. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I mean that's something that you grew up in.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Tell us a little bit
this is one of the things that when I look at people nowadays, I'm 38, right? But when I look at kids nowadays, I want to say kids, I mean like people who are 18, 20, 21, something like that, like young adults, and they're all soft.
Yeah.
What I mean is everybody who was born after the Civil War, especially if they were born after the year 2000, they are soft, meaning they never experienced hardship. They don't know the feeling of actually not being able to go out and buy stuff that you want because there is a sniper shooting at people. They don't know the hardship of actually going to wait in lines for hours, to spend your inflated currency to actually buy bread and food and mostly canned goods, right? They don't know the hardships that if you have a kid, and this is what happened to my parents. Like I cut my finger, I almost cut it off. Actually, my sister almost cut my finger off by closing some kind of like folding table on my finger. We had to. My parents freaked out and drove like crazy for an hour to actually get to the American University Hospital, which is literally, if there is no traffic, 10 minutes from my house. But they had to drive around craters and like roadblocks and sniper alleys and shit like that. And the thing is, this stuff, this is like, I'm not sure if it's Peter Molyneux who actually said, hard times create hard men, hard men creates good times create soft men creates hard times.
Yeah, that's a very common saying for its accuracy. I think we can all kind of recognize what's going on. And, I think to some degree, even in Lebanon during peaceful times, it's still tougher. Yeah. When I look at the U.S. and think about, what would a big disaster look like here, we haven't really been tested. When we talk about things like Hurricane Katrina, that was a 5-week emergency, what we would categorize as a type 2 disaster. It's a big deal. It's a regional impact, but it's not directly targeting your life, and people generally got along. All of the studies that came along after it and some of the subsequent disasters said that, by and large, people got together, they worked together, they did really well, and there wasn't a lot of fighting or looting or raiding or anything like that. But we're not talking about a 15-year civil war. That's consider a type 3, and it's much more protracted, much more dangerous.
And everything changes. Yeah, everything changes afterwards. It's you can never go back to how shit were before. And I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but just quickly, because it's directly linked to it. Actually, you actually have parts in the U.S. that have experienced type 3 emergencies, and in cities like Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
one of the things that we try to tell people is you don't have to go to the third world to find the third world. We have places in the U.S. that are living in that, where it is a disaster. Every day is a disaster. And, you don't wake up and argue with your spouse over what you'd like to eat. 3 meals a day isn't a taken for granted type of thing. And you can get shot or killed just for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. That exists right here. And, we easily lose track of that because most of us are pretty insulated from it. But as we have this growing disparity between the political powers, the economic circulation, things like that, those segments of society are going to do nothing but grow. And history has been very clear on that. Like you said, the easy times create weak men, and we're fully in that here. But I want to hear more about how the hardship has made you more resilient, how living in a type 3 emergency has kind of cultivated you as a person to be stronger and more accepting and more flexible within these disaster contexts or the catastrophe.
Okay, the thing is, when you live through hardship, you first of all, you lose your innocence pretty quickly. If you need to understand, you need to realize that you don't have a saying, oh, I don't want to go there. Your parents are dragging you to the fucking bunker because it's shelling. It's shelling time now. It's car bomb time. It's sniper alley time. So you start learning, or if you don't, well, you get injured, which will, if in case of permanent debilitating injury, I mean, it's a pretty ugly lesson to learn. But even if it's just pain and like temporary suffering, you're still learning, right? And kids, like children, are blank sheets of paper, and you're basically writing anything you want on those sheets of paper. So it's very important to actually write the difference between right and wrong, but it's crucial to start imparting useful skills, even though if they may not understand the importance of those skills directly. You can play it as a game, right? You can say, okay, now we're going to hide, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do this. Why don't you look for this type of mushroom? And they don't know, but they're actually collecting like edible mushrooms instead of poisonous ones. So you start developing stuff like this. We didn't have any of that stuff because I grew up in a city. So you couldn't grow shit, you couldn't hunt stuff. It was like it's a jungle of fucking concrete. So the only access to food you had was basically bakeries and supermarkets and butchery shops, etc., etc. So those were not the skills that you could develop. But what you develop is, okay, now I know that it's going to be at least a day before I can shower, and it's not like a nice hot shower, as much water as I want. It's basically my mom heating up a huge pot of water and we're having like we're pouring it on ourselves, me and my sister. It's basically you having to travel to Turkey because the shelling is so hard and people are going house to houses, kidnapping people and stealing their shit. So you actually have to escape to relatives in a different country. So technically, you're a refugee, right? And even though they love you and your family, you're still not in your country, right? This makes you understand, maybe not on a rational level, but subconsciously, you understand that I need to be able to take care of shit or it's gonna suck.
Yeah, right.
So
well, and that's
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but there is no like a 1, 2, 3 steps. It's basically you learn by being exposed to it.
yeah, and it's very dire consequences for slow learners.
Yeah. So this is about hardship, how hardship basically develops your character. Now, one of the things that you can actually glean from this is because you're used to hardship. Every time you have a situation where you're comfortable, you are really grateful.
Yes.
And you say, thank you God for the food, thank you God for the hot water, thank you God for being healthy. Yes. Thank you God for having a kid that is normal, not handicapped, because my wife had to take some expired medication when she was pregnant during the war, and now I have a kid that has not Down syndrome, but that has some kind of deformity or some shit. So you start becoming grateful for the stuff that you have instead of being a greedy bugger and saying, oh, why don't I have this new fucking Ferrari? I only have 2 Porsches. Right? So,
well, and we can tie that mentality directly back into what's causing the crisis in the first place, and that is people not being thankful for what they have and yes. continually wanting more. And once you've got everything there is to have, dropping $60 million on a South African hooker. That's the kind of
bullshit. No, please. She's not a hooker. She's a model. Yes. What's the difference? I'm sorry. I'm being judgmental here. The thing is, resilience and self-sufficiency will make you hard. But to realize the importance of resilience and self-sufficiency, you need to go through certain situations that force you to become hard. Right. So I'm not sure if it makes sense, right? You will not discover the need to be resilient, to be strong, to be tough, and to be self-sufficient unless you're put in a situation that requires you to be. It's like it's the saying that says experience is what you get when you don't get what you want.
Yeah, that's a good saying. Yeah. I haven't heard that before.
So basically it's like going into a BJJ competition and saying, oh man, I don't need leg locks, nobody needs leg locks, it's bullshit. And then you fight a guy who is open guard all the time and say, oh fuck, I wish I knew leg locks, I could have fucking healed the motherfucker. Right. So it's some things you wish you had, but you can't have it because you didn't consider it to be important. The thing is, the most important thing, and the reason why people are basically not pursuing the self-reliance and the self-sufficient lifestyle is because they are trapped in the illusion of consumerism going on forever and forever.
Right.
They're trapped because they're slaves to credit. I'm going to buy a big-ass 50-inch TV. Mm-hmm. Is that big or it's small? Because I don't know. I don't watch TV usually. Is it big?
It's pretty big, yeah. I mean, it'd be, bigger than I would need because I don't watch TV either. So, But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The materialist pursuit.
So I want to I only have a 42-inch TV. I need a 50-inch TV. You need a 50-inch TV to what, man? Seriously. So you can see the blood spatter on the wall when you're watching your favorite horror movie. So you can see the tit definition when you're watching porn. I mean, seriously, guys, it's like retarded.
Right.
The most important thing to understand is that consumerism is a fucking honey trap.
Yeah.
It looks good, it smells good, it's great. When you get it, you're fucking hooked, and there's no way out except through suffering. So
Yeah.
the most important thing to understand, you want to be, you're a prepper. Let's say, I hate this term. I don't like it. I think it's fucking retarded. You want to carry the fire, which is terms that I fucking adore. I stole it from you guys. You want to carry the fire for the next generation and have them carried for the one after. You need to understand that if you get comfortable, you get killed. So
Yes.
a little bit of discomfort is good because it fosters this resilience and this ability to take a hit. And this is the total opposite of comfort. And when I say comfort, I mean buying shit you don't need to impress people you don't care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is consumerism. This is not capitalism. Most people don't understand what capitalism is about. Capitalism is I am accumulating wealth from my own sweat and tears. And this is what I made. I'm keeping, this is me having this certain amount of, let's say, capital that I will invest in things that will allow me to live comfortably. Materialism is buying shit you don't need with capital that you worked hard for, but those shit don't even matter for anything useful. They're just illusions.
Distractions.
It's distractions, exactly. It's like you get free coke from the local drug dealer, not because he wants to give you something for free, but because he wants to hook you to it.
Exactly.
So, and we jump in financial planning. You want to be good and you want to take care of your family, you need to understand the importance of financial planning. Meaning, what assets do you purchase and how do you exploit them? What are fiat currencies? What is cash? What are precious metals? And why should you care?
So one of the things we started to talk about and didn't really flesh out was kind of the nature of the crisis in Lebanon right now, and we didn't really specifically say it, but it's a currency crisis.
It is a currency crisis. It's a currency crisis because people don't actually have any trust in the Lebanese pound as a currency, and that has been since during the around the mid 80s. When the Lebanese pound was like really good before the war. It was like 3 liras were like $1 or something. And then it jumped to 2,500 liras to $1. Mm-hmm. Officially, it's 15 liras, like 1,550 liras make $1. Now, because of the crisis, this crisis came on because of the liquidity problem of US dollars, people's trust in the US dollars as opposed to trust in the Lebanese lira. Now, if you go to the bank, you will not be able to withdraw any US dollars that you have. And if you're able to, you need to have a special, you need to have a good connection. Yeah, you need you need to use nepotism to get some money. You're unable to transfer any money outside Lebanon in terms of foreign currency. Like they have installed capital control, which is totally illegal, and it's unofficial, but it has been installed so that banks don't crash. Because if banks crash and go bankrupt, that's it. Civil war starts all over again. Not even civil war, worse, economic collapse and total chaos. Because even during the Civil War, banks never stopped transferring money abroad, never stopped receiving money, even when the Lebanese pound jumped to 2,000. Mm-hmm. And the thing is now, you got people who are actually hoarding dollars and selling it on the black markets at 2,000 liras. So we're back to the 1980s. So This is a big problem. It's a big problem. All this shit is linked to one thing. People loving credit.
Yeah.
Getting shit you don't need with money you don't have, and you repay it later. It's like basically signing your soul with the devil to get something now, and then you regret it the rest of your life.
Right. Pay it back with interest.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And interest accrues. It never stops. And in the end, you're paying interest, but you're unable to return the capital. And the interest now is a gazillion times more than the capital.
Oh yeah, people drastically underestimate how important compounding interest is. It's huge, and even a very small percent, even 3 or 4% over the course of a year can stack up to be thousands upon thousands of dollars, depending on how much you're loaned against.
Because it's a geometric. It increases geometrically, so
Yes.
it's a big problem, and most people don't understand what currencies are. Currencies is basically like the paper money. Like let's take, for example, the Lebanese lira. The Lebanese lira is issued by the central bank, meaning it's a piece of paper that has a nice logo printed on it by some guy in a banking building. And this guy tells you, this is a nice picture that you exchange with other people who are gullible enough to actually take it and give you skills and services and goods for it. Now, the only reason people do that is because this actual piece of paper has a counter value that is useful for people. And people associate this value with either US dollars or with actual assets, gold, silver, etc. So a fiat currency is anything that is not real hard asset and that is not precious metals. So US dollars, it's a piece of paper, guys. I mean, if you showed this to people if you travel through time, 700, 800 years ago, let's go back to the 12th century Europe, right, in the UK, right, and you showed a British pound note to a guy in a tavern, he'll tell you, what the fuck is this shit? Where's the coin?
Yeah, right.
I need silver, I need gold, I need copper, right? And all those metals, they're useful. Even if you can't actually eat it, you can still, because people have trusted it, especially silver that can be used for medical stuff. Gold, well, cannot be used as much as silver, but it looks valuable. So people project their hope. Yeah.
Just to briefly touch on this, but we were talking the other day about how there's almost a magnetism between people and gold. It doesn't even matter. It's just when you see it, it appears valuable. And there's not really any societies on the planet that don't see gold as a form of well, what would you call it? I mean, it's a true currency. It stores value in that value.
It's a store of value. It's a store of value. And did you ever feel like gold coins in your hand? You feel you got something. It's like I can have a wad of cash and say, what the fuck, toilet paper, right? But I have a couple of gold coins. I'm like, this is heavy. This is good. This feels like actual money, right? And this is quite interesting. It's a small parenthesis that I'm opening here. When a child is born in Lebanon, and sometimes in other Arab countries, you gift gold. Like you gift like a St. George coin, which is 24 karat or 22 karat coin. St. George. It's a British coin or something. Or you actually gift like 5 grams, like a 5 gram certified Credit Suisse or something coin. So you actually get, like when my kid got born, we got a lot of gold for him, like stored away, and this is quite nice, right? So you know that, well, if shit happens, this can be exchanged for goods and services. This can buy you passage. This can help you survive. You can, and I'm gonna tell you the story of when I trained with a French special forces guy who taught me firearms back in Switzerland in 2011. And this guy is a very big proponent of actually having cash. And what he did, and that was the first time I actually heard it. I saw it later on, right? But this is the first time I actually heard it. Is he traveled, he did snatch and grab operations in Africa and in former Yugoslavia, grabbing war criminals and shit. And when he was in Africa, he always had 3 gold coins sewn inside the belt. And he was, in case I am fucking kidnapped by someone, I can buy my freedom with those gold coins, because you go anywhere in the world, gold is gold, right? So that's the first time I heard this, and this is the first time it started clicking. And he's the same guy who actually told me, don't believe in plastic, meaning credit cards, debit cards, any of this shit. He told me, always have cash with you. And ever since that day, that's 8 years ago, actually that was in 2010, 9 years ago, anytime I got a paycheck, anytime I got cash, I kept it at home. So I either bought gold with it for storage to keep its value, because it's the only salvation you have against inflation, or I actually bought stuff that I needed with it, paid all my expenses, and whatever was left, I kept it in cash. Some on my person, no more than $50 on my person or $100 on my person, and the rest at home. So it's crucial to have cash, because what happened now with the banks here, people are running to get US dollars, right? So banks are only filling ATMs with maybe $5,000 a day. And those $5,000, everybody has a limit on his card that's like maximum, you can maximum withdraw $600 a day, right? So that's how many people? That's like less than 10 people, right? I waited 45 minutes to wait for the guy to fill the ATM to actually withdraw $600 the other day.
Yeah.
So if you don't have cash and shit hits the fan, you're fucked. You're not going to pay for your freedom swiping the credit card against the bad guy's butt crack when he's having got at your wife and daughter's head, right?
Yep. He doesn't want credit. He wants cash.
No, he wants cash, especially gold.
That's something that's taught pretty universally in it's military courses that are geared around escape and evasion and such. And that is that in most places in the world, if you have gold or there's a promise of gold, you are instantly worth more alive than dead. And if you don't, and if you get stuck up in the only English they speak is your family have gold, and you say no or you look confused, well, you're not worth much. So having that option, like your French commando friend was saying, is incredibly powerful. Even if it's just a down payment with these captors, because they're going to take whatever you've got anyway. You're not going to be able to really barter. But if they see that you have gold and they think your family has gold, all of a sudden now they're thinking we need to communicate. Whereas if you don't, you might just end up body floating in some dirty river someplace.
Yeah, or rotting in some fucking lush jungle or some shit.
You're right. Well, one other thing I wanted to say about cash and precious metals is that we can view those almost like we do our lines of emergencies. And one of the reasons that we use that template is because it works for almost everything. The upfront problems, like where you're at in Lebanon right now, cash is still something that you can exchange. You should use your cash. You should get rid of it and trade it for whatever you can get. Because if that next phase hits and you need something else, you don't want to be using your gold right now. You want to have that.
Yeah, of course not. Gold is only used in a type 3 emergency after dust has settled, right? You cannot use it immediately because people they're not going to really look at it and say, oh, it's pretty useful, right? So what I am doing right now in Lebanon is, as soon as I get my salary, which is in Lebanese pounds, I go and I spend it on food, on ammo, on stuff that I need, medicine for my son, milk for my son, food, etc., and more importantly, water. We'll touch on this in a bit, like what you need to survive a civil unrest. But let's go back to gold. The only currency that was minted by the Islamic State when they created their caliphate was gold and silver coins. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that was the only currency that was available in the Islamic State. Like in Syria and Iraq, they used gold dinars, silver dinars, and they used copper for like small transactions that are not really important. But this is like, those are a bunch of retarded motherfuckers. But that's the only thing right that they basically looked at and say, oh, we should go back to the gold standard. So maybe we should as well, right? But but does not mean disregard and burn your cash. Cash
Right.
has value for people because they're still living in the past, meaning they're living in the times where everything was good. Like if you ask a Lebanese guy now, how much? This is $1. How much Lebanese pound do you think they'll give you? They'll give you 1,500 liras because in their head they're still living in the past. But give it a couple of more weeks, and people will say, "I'm not." First of all, they'll say, actually, if you ask people 2 weeks ago how much the Lebanese pound was worth, I'll tell you it's like 1,500. And sure, I'll give you some US dollars, give me some Lebanese pounds, blah, blah, blah. But if you ask anyone now, would you exchange like $20 for Lebanese pounds? They'll tell you you're fucking crazy. Keep your fucking dollars, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, because if shit happens, you will need this foreign currency to be able to escape, to be able to acquire more goods, more services, etc., etc. Don't forget that all goods that comes from abroad, like wheat and fuel, medical supplies, medical tools, all those are paid in US currency because we import them from Europe, from the US, from Russia, from China, etc., etc. So
Yeah, there's some pretty strong evidence that's circulating out there that indicates that a lot of the reason that we're having the problems in that region that we are is because like Gaddafi had stated essentially he wanted to support a Pan-African currency backed by gold. He wasn't going to take petrodollars anymore. And then shortly after that, the State Department says, well, looks like they need a coup.
Yeah, and let's bring democracy to that country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we need to liberate them and get them.
Let's liberate your ass.
Yeah, and I'm not casting judgment on whether that policy is good or bad or whether Gaddafi was good or bad. I don't really care. The point is that we need to kind of have our eyes on these conflicts because they can tell us a lot about where we're heading. And right now,
exactly.
talking about
and people need to remember that the state, any state, is and as the same as the banking sector. Those are not your friends.
No.
And I'll go more into the banking sector first, and then I'll expand a bit more about the state and bureaucracy and the power of greed, if you don't mind.
No, please.
So, banking sector, the only objective of a bank is to make profits, right? Now, profits that is unregulated, desire to make money that is unregulated by a good moral compass leads to greed. Greed leads to corrupting politicians and using lobby groups to actually have more ability to generate profits. And this is what's happening. This is the reason what happened in Lebanon, the reason why we have such a high debt. And mind you, Lebanese banks own 90% of the government debt because they were lending people's money to the government, knowing well that the government is spending the money in a totally ridiculous way. $16 million hookers, for example. So that's a problem. Banks were motivated by greed because they were getting more money, lending it to the government via interest, via political contracts, via deals that allowed them to basically loan the government our money, and now they're refusing to give us our money back. Oh, I'm a banking employee. I love it. It's a wonderful job. Yeah, sure. It's a wonderful job if you're working for a small bank in a small community where the bank actually keeps people's money safe in a safe.
Yeah.
Loans it to people, actually injects the money inside the community so people can actually do things that they couldn't afford to do. Like I'm talking about industry, agriculture, stuff that's useful. Not study the sexual the sexual identity of penguins in Antarctica. Fucking retarded study. But I'm pretty sure that you have like a $1 million grant for something that's just retarded somewhere.
Yeah.
Or for example, like in Lebanon, we're going to give you $10 million to build a bridge. A year later, no bridge, but the politician has a $5 million mansion, a $1 million a year hooker, and he gave some money to the banks and some money to other people. So this is where the lobby groups, the banks, and the governments all meet up, gangbang the citizen, and you lose your money. And this is what results in economic collapse.
Yeah.
So banks are basically, if it's a small bank that is not obsessed with profits, and the bigger a bank grows, the more bureaucratic it becomes. It's like a state. A state may start small, right? And it may have the interest of the people. Let's, for example, the American Republic, right? But then it becomes bigger, and it starts increasing in size. It starts becoming more and more like a Leviathan, and it starts imposing its will. It starts creating combines and conclaves and oligarchies, and uses nepotism to favor people part of the government against those who are outside of the government. And any government that grows above a certain size should be watched with a lot of suspicion, because this is where you start having collusion between the government, the private sector, and lobby groups. And this is what happened in Lebanon. The current crisis is due to government borrowing money from the bank fucking over the consumers, not giving them loans to buy houses, the government raising taxes. Add to it that you have political instability because the state does not have a monopoly of violence. It's actually in the hand of a terrorist group, which does not mind humiliating certain people, crushing other people, elevating other people. So you start having inequality. Mm-hmm. So when you add all these things together, voila, you got an explosive recipe, which is the Lebanese civil strife situations that we're witnessing right now. And it's getting worse because a lot of people think they're entitled, meaning yesterday, the bodyguard of a retired army general got into an altercation with a guy who was a protester and shot him dead in front of his wife and kid because he couldn't fight him off physically. The other guy was a Druze, a strong guy, and he pushed him around. This guy shot him dead.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
So what happened is the Druze leader, Walid Jumblat, had to drive early morning today to the town of Shuaifit, which is basically where this guy is from, and calm people down, because that enough was going to ignite possible sectarian violence. Because the guy who actually shot him was with the patriotic was the Free Patriotic Movement, the guys who were with the government against the protesters. So small things like this can ignite a big problem. And situation is going to get really interesting because as of now, banks are closed. They're officially on strike. And this never happened, even in the Civil War. So what we're witnessing is a banking holiday very similar to the ones that they had in Cyprus in 2008, when the government decided to confiscate 30% of people's wealth in the banks.
So that's almost certainly the next step. Truly, that's it's probably already happening.
The thing is, if this happens in Lebanon is not Cyprus. The Lebanese are not as well. I'm not gonna say it because it sounds wrong, but I'm gonna say it anyway. We're not as civilized as the Cypriots, and when I say we're not as civilized, is that we remember our barbarian nature. This is why banks are doing their best to calm the situation down. They fucked up. There's no two ways about it. They know they fucked up. So what's going to happen is they're going to have to clean their shit up and try to have the government reduce the bullshit. The thing is, right now, the government, the president of the republic, Michel Aoun, does not want to do anything that is going to calm the situation down. He's a stubborn old man. He's a former army general who thinks he knows everything. So there's no two way about it.
Yeah.
And he lives and he's old and he lives on his own planet. So it's like if you look at the French Revolution, The reason why it exploded was when Marie Antoinette, which was, I think, the wife of the king, Louis the 16th, she said, they don't have bread to eat, have them eat biscuits instead. So that's pretty much what Michel Aoun said yesterday in the speech. The president said in the speech, if you don't like Lebanon, you can immigrate. And people fucking freaked out. There are things that you need, and there are skills that you need to have. And it's very important to understand that skills are more important than things. Yes. Skills over stuff, right? But what do you think? What do you think are some stuff that you need to go through stuff like this, like the coming unrest that's going to happen worldwide? Probably going to happen here before it happens there, but still, what do you think are some of the stuff that is needed?
Oh, it's just the way I always view this is things to address the rule of threes. We need oxygenated blood, we need shelter, we need water, and we need food. And I would tag on there that medication is also pretty necessary. Medication and protection, even though we don't have a definitive timeline. But anything that falls into those categories needs to be considered. But you're looking at a looming crisis. Tell us some of the things that you're considering right now. What is it that you have that you feel solid with, and what is it that you don't have that makes you nervous? If you don't mind telling us.
Yeah, of course. First, I'll start with things that I think are needed. Like you said, basically the rules of threes. It's basically oxygen, water, and shelter, and you added to it medical and protection, right?
Yes.
In terms of oxygen, well, you have it, and you probably have it to a certain extent, unless there is some catastrophic natural emergency that will reduce your ability to oxygenate yourself.
Yeah.
In case you're in an area that's prone with volcanoes and shit, so having gas mask and stuff is quite useful. Now, in Lebanon right now, because people are burning tires, you can see protesters like having bandanas soaked in water wrapped around their faces. So this, like having at least the knowledge to actually create some kind of filtration, like air filtration system, I think it's quite useful. And if you look at, I'm pretty sure that you can find stuff on YouTube, like how to make your own, like a cheapo gas mask. Well, not gas mask, but at least it will protect you from dust and particles and burning tires and stuff. You can probably find, like on YouTube, how to make one using water gallons that you cut in half, and you basically shove some wet rags in it or something. This is like, for oxygenation, this is it. Like the most important thing, most people forget this because you're living in a first world country. It's not every time that you open your faucets that you'll have clean drinking water. This is something that people experience, I think, after Hurricane Katrina, when you had a lot of pressure on sanitation, water and treatment plants and stuff like this. So for me, the most important thing is clean drinking water. Yes. So what I did is when trouble started, and the problem is water is heavy and takes up a lot of space. So first thing I did is I went out, I spent all the money, all the cash that I had, and I bought water for my kid because it's a baby. I have a baby boy, and it's crucial that he gets clean drinking water. I will also, me and my wife and my family will also use some of that water, but it's crucial that he gets it. And medicine is, well, basically what I do is I include milk with medicine for babies, because if they don't have milk, they will not grow up to be healthy. So milk and water, those I consider them as being like the backbone of everything that you need for a family with a baby. When I say a baby, I mean like a child that's up to 2.5, 3 years old, right?
Yeah. After you could even extend that.
Yeah, after 2 years old, the child can probably eat everything you guys eat. drink everything you guys drink, except maybe for bourbon, which will have to wait until they're 5. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you can give them beer when they're 2. Yeah, it's I'm joking. So basically, water. That's the most important thing. And what you want to do, I'm pretty sure, you correct me if I'm wrong, you want to buy bottled water that does not have a lot of nitrates or any kind of lots of sodium in it, because it's going to affect the baby's development. So,
yes, that can be the case for children. For young children, you want distilled water, but as people age, they actually need some of those hard minerals that are in just regular water.
But this is why you can actually add some salt and some other minerals to your drinking water for older people.
Yes. Emergency.
So that's number one. You need to have water, and the way to look at it is you need at least 3 liters of water for drinking per person. And what I usually do is I double that to be on the safe side, because you need to include cooking and washing your hands, washing your face, using a toothbrush and shit. Because if you just wash your teeth with some disgusting tap water that's filled with bacteria and shit, and you have open sores in your mouth, or you use the brush too hard and you start bleeding, you're just welcoming germs inside your mouth, and that's going to create a medical emergency later on. So
especially
at least,
so it's a very bad situation.
So at least 6 liters of water per person. For kids, you just you just go for half. I think that's enough, because you will be using it. They will be using it under your direct supervision. Mm-hmm. So if you want to survive, that's per person, right? So let's say that you're a family of 5, right? Mm-hmm. So that's you need at least 30, at least 30 liters per day, all included. 30 liters per day, that's maybe 15 water bottles.
Yeah, I think that for the people using U.S. standard, I think that's just about 10 gallons as a minimum.
Yeah.
So I think it's 3.5 or thereabout liter to a gallon. So
sure. Yeah, that's if you say 3 liters to a gallon, that's you probably need at least 3.5 gallons.
Yeah, and I mean that would be a bare minimum person too.
That's conservative, because you're not washing your clothes, and you're not showering, you're just drinking. Okay, so if you look at those numbers, you start freaking out pretty quickly, and to be honest, I don't think you can store enough water to last you more than a month. So this is why you need to have alternative ways of actually having access to water. Meaning, how do you purify water that looks clean, but might be contaminated by bacteria? So you need to understand, you need to have a nice amount of chlorine tablets, right? You call them chlorine tablets, water purification tablets.
And a source of renewable water too. I mean, that's one of the things that when we were talking about earlier, treatment is definitely a huge part of this. And in fact, I don't know, you know this, but and most of our listeners probably do too, but being able to purify water, substantial amounts of water, is a huge thing for us. And we see way too many people saying, well, I've got a life straw in my backpack. And it's like, okay, but how often do you want to be out huddling over mud puddles in the front leaning rest, sucking dirty water out of these things? And and that's apart from the issues of back flushing and everything else. But in your case, you live in a semi-arid or an arid climate. I mean, how is
no, actually, it's pretty temperate. Lebanon is pretty temperate. Yeah, it's pretty temperate. But the problem is because of rapid and unregulated urbanization, it's very difficult to actually find good cleaning water within city limits or within suburbia. So you actually need to go to the mountains to actually find streams of water, small lakes, natural places where water collects. So it's a huge problem.
How about rainwater?
The scariest thing for me is basically not having enough water.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see.
And another problem with it is, like I said, water takes an enormous amount of space, and it's fucking heavy, and it's not resilient. Neither is it resilient to basically to getting struck, to falling, etc. So the containers will break open fairly quickly. Number two is even bottled water will only last you for a couple of years because bacteria will start developing inside. You have this green smudge shit inside, and even if you put chlorine in it, it tastes like shit, right? And you may not know if you're actually cleaning it properly. You have no idea if you may clean bacteriological elements in it, but you may not clean. You cannot clean any chemicals unless you actually have a specific method to do that, and that's the problem.
Well, yeah, that's definitely an issue. One of the other things is testing for that stuff is just beyond the reach of most people. So like you say, you'll never really know, which is why we layered that approach too. It's one of those things where you always hear, filter and boil and use those things in tandem. And there's a reason for it. It's because it's so hard to tell if water is contaminated or not. So, but so let's move on from water. What are some of the other things that, looking down the road at the potential problems that Lebanon's facing that you wish you had?
Stuff that I wish I have is basically canned goods. Actually, to be honest, it's going to be like the buckets that you guys have in the US, like Oxford Farms or whatever the hell you call them, like big buckets of food that have like shelf lives of 10 years, 20 years, dehydrated stuff, MREs. This is really good. Unfortunately, we can't find those in Lebanon. So we need to buy, like what I usually do is I buy canned goods and I rotate. Like I buy stuff that I usually eat, so beans, tuna, pasta, rice. That's pretty good. But don't forget that you also need vegetables. So you need to buy canned vegetables. You need to have access to a small garden. The stuff that I wish I can have right now is a plot of land with a stream, so I can have like actual fresh water and the ability to plant vegetables, to plant some fruits, to plant some herbs and stuff like this. And most importantly, the skills to be able to do that. Like I know that you can grow potatoes in a bucket or in a barrel, but who has, like, you may have the the theory behind it, understanding how it's done, but can you actually do it if shit happens? This is why you need to train this stuff before you actually get into a situation like this. So those are the things that I wish I had, like the ability to hunt and to plant stuff and to grow stuff. Also, what I wish I have right now is good medical skills, like the ability to fix major stuff. Now, I know the theory, I know how it's done, I know how to install a tourniquet, I can probably suture a wound if I have to, but I didn't actually train this stuff. So you will never rise to it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's basically you think you are better than what you actually are. And there's no way you'll know this unless you actually put yourself in this situation, right?
Yeah, and so many people are resistant to even the concept of, hey, I should test this. I should test this theory. Most people, and I've been seeing this so often lately that it's hard to stay motivated with an effort like ISG because we're all about pressure testing everything that we say or do. If we don't know that it works, we don't want to say it does. And we see so many people who just kind of grab a concept and are like, hey, this worked during a training class, and I think it's going to work. Well, do you know that? And one of the big ones recently is, like shooting out the front window of a car, which, if you've done it, it's a terrible idea. And, 99% of the situations, but you still just see it as a persistent thing, even amongst people who are extremely competent. But, if you have to take into account your sphere of violence. What does life look like for you? And if you're in a fucking Fiat with your family and you start blasting the front window glass, even if you do survive, now your family has a bunch of glass dust in their eyes. They're deaf, and your kids are going to have.
Exactly. Most people don't fucking think about this stuff. People who like military personnel who go into harm's way wear eye protection all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I don't fucking wear Oakley glasses. My family and kids don't wear Oakley glasses. We don't have like ear protection. Have you ever shot? If you ever shot around in an indoor range without like having double protection, like if you only have plugs, you'll still protect your hearing. But do you ever shoot it like in indoor range with just ear pro, like not the big, like the muffs, like just the plugs?
Yes,
it's fucking annoying as fuck. So imagine you're doing it inside a car. If the windows are rolled up, that's gonna suck. Plus, add to it, kids. If you have kids, they're gonna fucking go hysterical because they may not have seen it. Maybe they're sleeping, maybe they're playing. They'll be like, and rightly so, they'll be traumatized by this. And they'll start screaming, and this is going to increase your stress level, which is going to make your skills go down, right?
Yeah, and no matter where you come from in the tactical world, after you've shot out of your vehicle, which, again, I don't think is very worthwhile practice for the overwhelming majority of situations, you still have to move. Eventually, you have to egress that bullet sponge. And now you have to do it with a bunch of screaming kids in tow. If you're a citizen, you should be thinking outside the box. And it's so easy to say that. And everybody says it and everybody thinks they do it. But the truth is most people really do not. But that's, neither here nor there. But the idea is, like you said, the Dunning-Kruger's effect is just in full tilt. And so many people just try to buy a solution, or they take a training class, adaptive combat carbine for disruptive environments 4, and all of a sudden they think they're a tier 1 citizen or something like that. And you're not. You wrote an article. Aaron wrote an article that is pretty on spot for this stuff, and it's called "Your primary weapon is the handgun." Yes.
Your primary weapon is the handgun, and it's so true on so many levels. It's the weapon that you carry 99% of the time. Unless it's a fucking war zone, I'm not going to go down the street with my AK-74M shouldered and doing tactical movements. If I do that, I'll get shot in the head by the police or the army, thinking I'm some kind of jihadi that just fucking teleported from Baghdad or something. So,
right.
What the fuck is this guy doing here? But most of the time, you need to be concealed. You're a civilian. You need to be the gray man. So it's not that something that you learn in a class and that's it. It's part of you. It's a skill that you need to develop over time. And one of the things I actually learned from this French special forces guys in Switzerland. He told me, like him and another guy, they told me 2 very important lessons. The first lesson that was taught by the French guy, his name is Philippe. He told me, you need to understand that you're living with your weapon. Living with your weapon is not the same thing as being a gun owner. You need to live with it. You need to, okay, I'm going to take a shit in a public bathroom. Where do I put my gun? If you said, oh, I'm gonna put it behind me, you're a dumbass, because it's gonna when you stand up and you're wiping or washing yourself or whatever, it's gonna fall down the fucking drain. It's gonna fall down the toilet. And if you don't know where to put your spare mag, if you put it somewhere and it falls down on the ground and it's not a nice place, it's not a clean place, now you got shit and debris on it. So when you try to do a tactical reload, you got a piece of fucking toilet paper that's going in with your gun, and it's gonna fucking jam the action, especially if it's a 1911.
Yeah.
So the devil is in the details, and something that we talked about last time, and I think you liked it. It's your gear should be basically, you should look at your gear and what you have with you as part of your everyday carry as following the acronym MEC. mission, environment, context. What's your mission? What's your environment? What's your context? It's totally retarded for me to carry a Steyr AUG going into battle here because, first of all, I never fucking find mags for it. And second of all, there is no fucking way I can find ammunition for it. However, it's a lot smarter for me to actually use an AK or an AK-74 because most people have those.
Right. Exactly.
So you need to, that's,
Yeah. In my opinion, having that commonality is a very strong thing. And, again, that's one of the reasons why we say, hey, look, don't just spend $4,000 on the most tricked out AR clone that you can, or your Gucci Glock or whatever else. Get used to a Makarov, get used to an AK or a FAL or a G3. You should be able to pick one and immediately know the nuance. And if you can do that, I don't really care how good you are with it. You won't be a liability. The marksmanship is basically the same. You have a few little adjustments to get used to, but if you can pick it up and you don't, shoot yourself in the foot or try to chamber around with the safety on an AK or something like that, then you're probably doing pretty good. And that should be a priority before having, the most lean, AR that you can buy and taking a bunch of carbine classes. You should be able to run a Mac, a revolver, 1911, a Glock.
This is, and you guys actually had a pretty awesome drill, which I did, like I modified it a bit and I did it, which is the guns up drill, which is amazing. It's amazing. Why don't people look at stuff like this and say, hey, this is something that I need to do at least once a year to get myself acclimated to different platforms? Because I shot Glocks, I shot SIGs, I shot Berettas, I shot Baikal Vikings, I shot Makarovs, I shot J-frames, I shot K-frames, I shot Colts, I shot Rugers, I shot CZ pistols, and I don't even own any of them. The only thing I actually owned were J-frame, which I sold because Makarov does exactly the same job. It's easier to reload. It does the job faster, better. Ammunition is cheaper. And to be honest, as much as I train with the J-frame, I could never be as decent with it as I can with the Makarov. So it's like sell something that you don't need and buy a duplicate of what you can do. So if I was in the US, the main platform used by everyone in the US is a Glock or a Smith & Wesson M&P. These are the compact to subcompact, an AR. So it would be totally retarded for me to actually use an HK USP because most people don't use it, and HK hates people, so they have crappy customer support, expensive mags, etc. So it would be a lot smarter to you know what? I don't like revolvers, but you know who carries revolvers in Lebanon?
No, I don't.
Police. I don't like Browning high powers, but who carries Browning high powers?
Military, I'm guessing.
Member of the gendarmerie. So if I don't know at least how to operate one, how to work with it to a basic level, then I can never say that I know how to use this stuff.
Right. Well, and one of the things that really drove this mentality in me as a young person, reading a quote from Musashi, and I know it's a little cliche, but he said the warrior shouldn't have a favorite weapon. You shouldn't go and pick out your favorite thing. That's kind of like going to train in a martial art and picking the weakest guy in the gym and saying that's who I want to spar with. You should go and find the biggest, baddest motherfucker in the place and say I'm gonna get my ass whooped, but I am learning.
Yes. And this is why, and we can directly connect mental preparedness with actual skill development.
To
be honest, if you can have all the preps in the world, and you can have a bunker filled with weapons and explosives and ammo and everything you want, but if you're not mentally prepared to do the things that have to be done to protect yourself and your family, then you're going to get killed. And the guy who's killing you is going to inherit all your shit. So you need to realize a couple of very simple truths. There is no way you can prepare for everything.
Right.
This is why we follow the acronym PACE. Primary, alternative, contingency, emergency. you can have 4 backup plans. If all those 4 plans fail, God hates you. I'm sorry, but eventually everything, like there is a saying that like a Japanese proverb, all creatures will die and all things will be broken.
Yeah.
It's the law of the universe. Nothing lasts forever. So you need to accept this. And it's extremely discomforting for a parent to think about his child being sick and you being unable to help him. This is why you pre-plan stuff like this. You say, okay, you know what? If something happens, I know that there is a pharmacy in my neighborhood that in case my kid is dying from typhus or some kind of like diarrhea, or he got shot and there is no way I can take him to his hospital because they're all bombed the shit out. I can go to this pharmacy, I will break in, I will go in, and I will use mental acrobatics, I will use moral acrobatics, I will justify whenever I have to justify so I can get my kid safe, so I can make sure that my kid lives, because it is totally useless to carry the fire if you're not carrying it for people that you love.
Right.
I'm carrying the fire for whom? For the stranger, the guy living like 10 doors down? He doesn't even know I exist. No, we carry the fire for those we care about.
Yeah, and as you say, the moral acrobatics of the whole situation, you have to be okay with that before it unfolds. You don't want to be sitting there arguing about it or this or that. And the other thing is, this is not something I've experienced a lot because fortunately I have a different family dynamic. But a lot of times when you start saying, hey, look, there's going to be tough decisions that have to be made, you get a bunch of resistance from people who are locked in the paradigm paralysis. Sure. And I'm not advocating going out and doing anything more than you absolutely have to, but I don't see looting as a huge crime. I think that when you're in a situation, especially like a natural disaster, a post-natural disaster, taking something from the pharmacy that's locked, breaking in and taking that to keep your kid alive, the greater crime is allowing your kid to die.
You cannot have any moral acrobatics if you don't have a good moral compass. And this is why having a good moral compass, knowing what is right and what is wrong, and making a tough decision in the face of adversity to protect others, not for selfish fucking gains. And this is the difference. I would not go to a bank and take the money that is not mine because it's not fucking mine. That would be stealing. But I have absolutely no problem going in and taking money that is mine and actually signing a note that I took my money, I made a withdrawal, even if it was by force of arms, because my family needs that money to escape the country, to go abroad, or I need money to feed them, right? A lot of people will look at this and say, oh, you're a fucking criminal. I'm sorry, but my family is above all those petty moral quabbles that you're throwing at me. I don't really care about what you think. Not you. I mean, like most people. I care about my family first and foremost, my tribe, meaning my friends, people I trust, people I rely on, people I want to carry the fire with. Everybody else is, well, I don't really care about them much. I'm not saying they're bad people, but my people first.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, one of the litmus tests I use to determine whether or not this is something that, is not going to haunt my conscience is if the situation goes through, I have to face both outcomes. So in this case, we're talking about the loss of a child. Would I rather go to prison than lose my child? And the answer is absolutely 100% unequivocally yes. Send me to prison. Sure, I would rather that than have my child die. And that's a moral question that people need to get right with. And it's also the reason that we prepare. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is prevent ourselves from ever having to cross that bridge and say, look, we know across that bridge is a dangerous and dark place that we don't want to have to live. So how can we get to our destination without taking that shortcut? And that's a very important subtlety that people just deny. They don't talk about it. They don't think about it. And they pretend that if they don't acknowledge it, it won't exist. But it does. And it's not just you. Other people are going to be doing this what Eleanor Learmonth calls survival math. And I love that term because it's such a dangerous road to go down. And they do a great job of talking about that in the book No Mercy. If you haven't read it, it's
no, I'm going to put it on my to read list.
Yes, it should be required reading for anybody who thinks that ISG is a worthwhile effort. You should definitely give it your time. It chronicles a bunch of different disasters and their outcomes and the things that led to either success or disaster. In any case, having those questions answered in advance is a big thing, and then take that information and say, let's backdate this all and say, if we had to work back from that point, what are the decisions we could make now that lead us in a different direction? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's all about preparing for situations. And like you said, you got possible and you got probable. You also got immediate, short term, medium term, and long term. You need to plan for all this stuff. Now, if I can see that the situation in Lebanon is going to escalate into a genocide, I would be a fool if I stayed here, even though I own assets, and which it's not like just gold and cash. If you own assets like houses, offices, those you can rent, and this is how you actually exploit your wealth. You don't exploit your wealth by keeping money in the bank, because only people exploiting it are bankers and corrupt politicians.
Right.
But if you own stuff, you invest your money into real estate, which you rent or you sell, and you make a healthy profit, and then you invest it in other stuff, skills, other assets, gold, other currencies, but never any of that bullshit stock and shit that most people do. Oh, I'm buying stocks in Microsoft. Really? Who gives a fuck?
You're gambling.
You wanna. It's like you seen the movie Deer Hunter with and when he goes in this Viet Cong really not Viet Cong, this Vietnamese shop where they're actually playing Russian roulette with a cold detective revolver. This is basically what you're doing with your money if you invest in in stocks and bonds and stuff like this. It's like either you get it or you don't. You know what? If I wanna preserve my wealth, I'll buy gold. If I want to invest my wealth and develop it, I'll basically buy stuff and rent it or resell it or refurbish it or whatever.
Absolutely, property.
But going back to the skills that you need to strive. Like we said, you got, like, most importantly is mental preparation and the ability to do more acrobatics. You can do that stuff by doing what ifs, by planning for situations that may happen, right? And another thing that I think is crucial, and basically, like I say, a total warrior project, you start with the mindset. Anything, knowledge and mindset. Then you grow to the ability to use your body as a weapon, so unarmed combat skills and abilities. I'll just flesh out the whole circles, because then it's like basically you throw a rock in the pond, and this rock is survival instinct. You throw it in the pond. The first thing is developing your mindset, and then the first circle is unarmed skills. After this, you got using edge and point weapons and improvised weapons, so sticks, pens, knives, shanks, stuff like that. After this, you got the ability to use firearms, handgun, rifles, sniper rifles. You don't really need to understand light machine guns and explosives, but that's always a plus. After this, you need good medical and self-reliance, meaning understanding how do you work, how do you operate on someone or fix someone in austere environments, where like you have two good books here, where there is no doctor and where there is no dentist. Those are quite good, and they should be. And you can get them for free off the internet. And if you're too scroogey to buy them, just print the fuckers out and hardcovers them and keeps them. You should have those two books.
I want to say one thing on that really quick, and that was that where there is no doctor was a constant companion of mine while I was in Afghanistan. And the reason was, I wasn't a medic or anything, but being able to help people who are in need of medical attention is one of the fastest ways to build rapport. And it solidified for me a tremendous amount of human intelligence, and it actually opened the door for trade and things like that, and especially in information. But I've said it in articles in the past, but universally recognized is when you help someone else's children,
Yes.
they will reciprocate, and it's just it overcomes cultural barriers like you wouldn't believe. So yes, I absolutely advocate have that book, keep it around.
Yeah, definitely. And well, if you give kids candy, yeah, sure, they'll smile at you, but they'll
Yeah.
probably backstab you. But if you help a guy whose daughter has been hit by a shrapnel to
Yep.
not lose her ability to walk, you bring a smile back to her face. I'm pretty sure this guy, even if he thinks you're an infidel, he's gonna owe you something.
Yep.
Especially in tribal or
Yes, absolutely.
really traditional societies like Afghanistan and the northern part of Pakistan, like the tribal areas.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about that all day, but we tried to turn what should have been a purely unconventional war into a basic police action because it wasn't going fast enough. We could have won in Afghanistan if we had continued on the path of unconventional warfare. Unconventional. That's what we.
And because we're on the topic of unconventional warfare, there is a book that I made a requirement reading for all my students when I teach them, and it's called WASP by Eric Frank Russell.
Okay.
And if you haven't read this book, you're gonna love it.
Okay.
And it's basic. It was written in the 50s by a former British guy. I'm not sure if he was like a radio operator during the war, but I know he worked. I know he worked with the I think the OSS or something like that. But basically, this guy tells you what to do when you're thrown away in a country with a totalitarian government. How do you actually create an insurgency using extremely limited resources? And it's a science fiction book. Basically, it's between Terrans, meaning humans from Earth, and the Syrian Empire, which is a totalitarian, not the Syrian government, the Syrian Empire, which is like an alien species that look like humans, but they're purple and they eat like really weird shit. But they're totally totalitarian. So you can imagine a cross between the Stasi, the KGB, and the Gestapo in terms of access to people and using informers and crushing freedom and propaganda, etc. I think this is a book that I have read countless times in the last 2 years.
Okay. Well, send me a link when we're done, and I'll put it in the show.
Sure.
And that way we can, if somebody wants to read it, I'll pick
you
it
can
up.
if you don't want to, if you can't afford, and this is where I say everything digital should be free, because you can basically find it as a PDF online. But of course, it's much better to actually have a hard copy book in your hand, and it doesn't cost anything. It's like a maximum $10, so anybody can afford this. I mean, don't go and have your giant fucking Coca-Cola with the 3,000 calorie huge price. Just fucking go and buy this book instead. It's much better for your health.
Sure,
so
definitely.
Going back to the skills that you need to survive strife. This is the core of Salvos Modum, which is what I teach, survival method in Latin. You basically start with the mental, then unarmed, then edge and point and improvised weapons, then firearms, then medical and self-reliance. Now, like I said, my medical and self-reliance skills are not as good as I should be, but I'm working on them. What I can say is basically a little bit about the hand-to-hand stuff. You got two different schools regarding this. You got people say, you should only do like combat sports, and other school says, you should only do like reality-based self-defense. You cannot do anything else. It's shit, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
First, a small bio about like my background. I started doing traditional martial arts, and when I say traditional, I mean the McDojo crap shit. When I was a kid, got my ass kicked, got bullied in school. None of this fancy crap never worked. I did some Muay Thai kickboxing. That was okay. Then I discovered jiu-jitsu, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and like some kind of MMA stuff.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's everybody should do at least a couple of years of BJJ, at least get promoted to blue belt, and do a couple of years of MMA. I think those, in terms of combat sports, are really good because they allow you to fight people who are fighting back and who are not letting you try your shit without resistance.
Right. 100% agree with you. Yes.
So, but if you're limited and you cannot do any BJJ or any MMA with a good academy, you can do wrestling, either catch wrestling or freestyle or Greco-Roman, and boxing. I think those are really, really good in terms of combat sports. So if you can do judo or sambo, that's on par with BJJ for me. Although I prefer BJJ to judo. Sambo is great, but they have like this weird uniform that no, just no. But the skills you get while grappling are excellent. And for me, I place grappling above other combat sports because it teaches you to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes, absolutely. I think grappling is come into its own as being universally recognized as important.
Yep. Yep.
And we've kind of moved away from striking arts like boxing, because even though boxing has tremendously relevant skills to teach, a lot of fights do end up with grabs. And when you accept that that's a reality, whether or not you buy into the all fights go to the ground thing or not, I personally
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. But
be able to understand limb control. Yeah, right. And actually, I think that ties directly into using edged weapons and accessing handguns in fights.
Yes.
Is if you don't have any grappling skills and you're a gun person, you are going to get your ass handed to you and get shot unless you're just overwhelmingly strong.
Yes, exactly. And let me just hold that thought for me. We'll get back to it, especially with what is being taught nowadays as weapon retention and fighting when you have a handgun. And this, to me, this is one of my pet peeves. But let me first keep on talking about other systems. Yeah, you have people who say the only thing that is good for self-defense are Krav Maga, which is utter crap, because it's memorizing techniques like a monkey, and reality-based self-defense. Now, after I did my BJJ stuff, like maybe I started doing BJJ, I started doing grappling on and off like 19 years ago. But what really helped me was like getting good, quickly good, and having confidence because of competence was the training with Sanchido. And that's a really good system, really good approach. And I got like one person I can recommend in the US. If you don't mind, I'll basically, it's my friend Richard Capozzi, and he's in Connecticut. He has sanchidoct.com. Really good guy, really good. He's a cop, and he basically uses this stuff on a daily basis because he's a patrolman to survive against like felons and stuff. And if you guys are in Canada, this is a guy that survived hardship, but in a quite different way. His name is Jeffrey Boyron, and he's on Instagram as Barbaric Bastard. He's one of the guys that he was born with only one leg, so he has a prosthesis, and he actually fought and defended himself successfully against people with knives, bats, multiple attackers who tried to beat the shit out of him. He won. So, in terms of reality-based self-defense, I think like combatives are good. Sanchido is better in terms of like gives you a quick, useful ability, and it's pressure tested. Like you said, if you don't pressure test something, you will not know if it's good, right?
Right.
That's for a first level. Now, what I've been doing for the last few years is I rediscovered through my instructor Harun Dar. I rediscovered old school jiu-jitsu and old school karate before it became sports. So we're talking about stuff from before 1860. And it's originally it was and it was basically disable, main, kill. So it was not nice. So you didn't have any fancy throws, any fancy wrist locks. You either disable the guy, meaning he cannot do what he's doing, or you maim him, so he's really fucked for the rest of his life, or you kill him. It is the original battlefield arts, used back like in the olden days. It also has like old school boxing. How do you punch the guy without breaking your hand, but you make sure that you break something that would really hurt him. What I've been doing is I've been combining stuff like grappling, BJJ, do some visual wrestling as well, MMA. You need to combine stuff, but the foundation of everything is balance. And this is what I've learned from Haroon. The old school jiu-jitsu stuff, if you disable the guy, if you disturb the guy's balance, no matter what he does to you, it's not going to have a lot of effect.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's and you mentioned this, I think, before. We're talking privately. If you disturb the person's balance, you can basically pick what you want to do to him. It's a fairly simple concept, but you need to understand biomechanics and physiology. And most importantly is if you don't understand human anatomy, you're basically shooting in the dark.
Yeah,
if you have a handgun and you're just shooting at the shape. But if you know how the human body works and where are the major arteries, where are the major organs, you can actually selectively attack those and have effect on target quickly and more effectively than any reality-based self-defense. The thing is, this is not as common as like McDojos and Krav Maga stuff, and this is like, it's hard. Like, it's mentally hard because you're being attacked and you're attacking people on their digestive, on their reproductive, on their nervous system, on the lymphatic system. So it's quite painful. A lot of people will not do this for a long time, but it still, if you understand this stuff, you will be like, it's gonna be like magic. You're gonna control and dominate people like super easily.
Sure. Well, being able to be technically competent in a hand-to-hand fight, no matter how you view it. So one of the things, I've dabbled in martial arts, and after a while, I kind of become bored because there's a certain point that you hit where it's like, okay, well, this is great for a few things. It's great for camaraderie. It's great for fitness. It's great for learning some technical work, and it's great for developing some calm under pressure.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we get to a point with any discipline, I don't care if it's hand to hand or knife or gun, whatever, where you're so focused on certain technical aspects, you're so focused on drills that you kind of lose sight of the big picture.
True. And don't forget, Aaron, most of the stuff taught in martial arts nowadays is like the censored stuff. It's censored stuff that it's asinine, and I don't know how to say this. It is not. It's basically conventional warfare.
I understand.
What you need is an unconventional way of dealing with an attacker, and more importantly, when you start understanding anatomy, and of course you understand psychology and you understand manipulation of human behavior, you can start having stuff. You can start applying what I like to call deniability techniques. This is something that my instructor taught me, and it's basically how do you do things that do not attract attention because you're in a non-permissive environment or in an environment where you cannot afford to have people look at what you're doing with a close eye or have the police over to investigate you.
And most of the experiences that we have fighting are ego competitions, in which case, sucker punch. Be able to hit first and ratchet the noise up louder than the other guy, faster than the other guy is really kind of the game. And, also I feel like that's where a lot of martial arts really shine is the events that you can avoid through good decision making. No, that's not always the case. Like the
True.
The basic idea behind being able to fight has really been lost. Let's talk a little bit about edged weapons and then fire and how they relate. your situation?
Edge weapons. This is the oldest skill known to man. I mean, for as long as men started fighting for food, for resources, for land, for whatever, they always had some form of edge to a point weapon. If you look back at prehistory, you'll see that Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, etc., Homo habilis, they all had some kind of like sharpened silex or sharpened stones that they would use to stab, cut, or pierce other humans with. And this is basically one of the only tools that did not really change in millennia.
Yeah, we've hit the pinnacle, so to speak, and really there hasn't been a whole lot new. The idea is stab a blade into them.
Yes, exactly. So you either pass the piece of either pass this element, this material thing. It can be silex, it can be Star Wars lightsaber, whatever, next to something. So you either cut something off the person by passing it next to it, or you put it inside some other person, so you're piercing. To be honest, I prefer stabbing versus piercing versus slashing, for a simple reason that people will not feel a slash or a stab directly. They will not feel it in terms of pain, but if a stab will get the job done quicker because you're going directly to the organs.
Right.
So in case you need to stab someone, and by the way, anything related to edge and point weapon, we're talking lethal force here. We're not talking, I'm just going to defang the snake. No, this is you don't have a shawarma shop, a kebab shop, and you're not cutting pieces of the guy defanging his snake. That sounds pretty gay, right? Defanging his snake. So don't defang anybody's snake. No circumcision required. Just look at how people use knives in high stress and high stakes situations. So basically, convicts in prison. How do people fight people with pointy objects in prison? This is a methodology that you should look at. Basically, the Folsom prison knife methodology. You grab the guy with one hand and you stab him with the other. Sewing machine type. This would work, right? Filipino martial arts stuff? Nah. It only works for people who have big ass blades, I think.
Yes, very much so, and that's one of the common things that we've seen and discussed amongst ourselves before trying to put any information out on this. Is that you need to be ready to be bathed in this guy's blood, piss, and shit, and you need to be ready for him to squeal like an animal, and all these other things that go along with it. So it's definitely one of those things where when I discuss the knife's role, very much like what you've just said, for me it's a tool that occupies distance. Now, some people, I hear this all the time, where the knife is a tool to create distance so you can access your handgun. I think of the knife as a tool to eliminate distance.
Exactly. Yes. I would rather. If I have a knife, I want to grapple with the guy so I can stick him effectively and end him faster.
Right. And if you start creating that distance, well, let's say you've got a couple stabs in on him. Well, he's not in a whole lot worse shape than you, potentially, and he may be able to access his weapon. Or if it's a multiple attacker situation, you don't want to let those guys gain that distance because you're playing against the clock at that point. And time is the most understated element of fighting that there is, in my opinion. Time is options, time is danger. It's so many different things. It's distance. So really, we want to be able to kind of cleanly close those loopholes with the people and not allow them to access other weapons or maneuver. Because what if he runs up? What if you start backpedaling and he runs away? Where are you? So in any case, we got to start working towards closing. But let's talk real quickly about any other weapons preparation that you think is necessary.
Sure. I think, like you guys say, and I love it when I read it, your handgun is your primary weapon.
Yeah, I think so too.
You need to train with your handgun 3 times as much as you train with your rifle to maintain proficiency. And when I say proficiency, I'm not saying that you're a Spetsnaz that's jumping through windows and doing backflips and shooting balloons off little seals' noses. No, it doesn't work that way. What I mean is to be able to have consistent hits on a man-sized target, preferably into the head, up to 7 meters, and trying to develop this skill set to be able to do it up to 15 meters. Like, personally, if I'm going to shoot my handgun, it means that I failed awareness,
Yes.
I failed escaping, I failed verbal de-escalation, I failed hand-to-hand combat, I failed employing any improvised weapons like a pen, not to stab him to death, but to put it in him so he goes, ouch, this fucking hurts. So I create distance and run. This is the only time I would use like an improvised pen or something, not to basically massacre the guy, but just to stab him in a way that hurts, so I can push him off and get the fuck out of there because I don't want to stay there, or create distance to actually go for my gun. So I would personally, the way I train handguns, I basically love Paul Howe's methodology, how he uses building blocks. He has really good drills. I also like to train realistic distances, meaning most common distance for me to go from my handgun is when the bad guy is going for his gun, or when it's multiple attack situation and I am within they're outside of 2 meters. So basically I cannot actually grab them or move them or off balance them to actually start using hand-to-hand skills. So as long as the person is within 2 meters, I will go for unarmed, because the worst thing that you can do is try to beat a drone gun onto you. There is no way I can outdraw a drone gun.
Yes, dude, this is one of those things that when I see people emphasizing their fast draw, their static fast draw, it's like, oh, stop. You know, it's the same thing with the vehicle ambushes and shooting out the front window. Dude, if somebody's got the drop on you, you have no other choice. You're never going to outgun them at that point. You need to outmaneuver them.
So you need, exactly. So you get off the fucking X, man. Move.
Yeah, right.
Once you move, now of course, it's sometimes you draw your gun and you conceal it somehow, position sul where you have your hand on top of it. But this is like very specific stuff. It's not like you're gonna walk down the street like this. But most of the time, your gun is it's basically away. It's holstered. There is no way you're gonna go for the gun unless you feel that something is escalating in a way that you cannot handle with other methods, other methodologies. So, but even if the guy is if the guy is drawing his gun and he's within 2 meters, I would not go for my gun. I would move him, off balance him, or start doing something to him to make him foul up his draw. And once his draw is fouled up, I will either continue with unarmed, or if distance does not allow me, I will go for my own gun. And if I go for my gun, I'm shooting to end him now. I'm not shooting I'm going to go for headshots. And this is just me, because in my current environment, if I go for my gun, there's a lot of probability that people are wearing body armor, they're wearing chest rigs. So and remember, 80% of people shot by handguns will survive it, even if it's a headshot. So I would rather go directly for the head area, especially if the guy is not too far away. But of course, this all depends on his threat level. If I fouled up his draw and he dropped the gun, do I shoot him? No, of course not. I'll just basically do something else to him. But if he dropped his gun and he's going for a backup gun, or if he's going for a knife, do I shoot him? Depends on the distance. If he's too close, if I try to shoot him, he's going to stab me, he's going to gut me, which is, I may not die, but it's going to fuck up my day, right? So it all depends on variables. If it's multiple attackers and I feel they're going to hurt me and they're further away, I will probably draw my gun. But you need to understand, drawing a gun in Lebanon, even if there is threat of life and they don't have a gun out against you, this is brandishing and this is a felony. So I'd rather, as much as possible, look like a sissy, run away, hide behind cars, and get the fuck out of there, than actually pull out my gun. Because of the stupid law here, if you pull out your gun, you must shoot, which is a totally retarded law. So I don't want to do that, right? So basically, this is regarding handgun skills. You need to train it 3 times the times that you're gonna train the rifle skill, and you're gonna get used to doing the stuff that you hate, like support hand only, primary hand only. And there is no need for you to do malfunction clearing, primary hand only or secondary hand, because the probability of this happening is fairly low. I'm not saying that you never do it. Yeah, you do it once a month, or do it once every 5 shooting sessions. But focus on the stuff that you need to do, which is moving, drawing, communicating, de-escalating. Even if you have your gun out, you need to know that you're not always going to have to shoot the guy. Maybe if he saw your gun, he pissed his pants, he dropped his gun. So if you automatically go and draw and shoot, you're gonna be in deep trouble.
Yeah,
and,
I completely agree. The fluid nature of lethal force encounters makes it an absolute nightmare. You know what I mean?
It is horrible. It's really horrible. And the most scary thing is if you shoot a bad guy and you miss, you hit someone else. Worst case scenario is you hit a child. I mean, God. This is like horrible. I'd rather get shot than shoot a child.
Yeah, same. And one of the things about this is there's just so much to the interpersonal sphere of violence. When you're talking about military or institutional violence, those things are so impersonal. You're usually fighting somebody who doesn't speak your own language. You're usually fighting them in a place that's either your home or not your home, which gives you some moral high ground or doesn't. But the violence doesn't follow you home. You know what I mean? ISIS doesn't follow home soldiers that were, deployed to Syria. They shoot them while they're at the war and then they leave. But let's say you do have a collapse and you do shoot somebody that's, from your neighborhood or from a neighborhood just right by. Well, he's got family. He's got cousins. He's got
people who are gonna come wreck. They're not gonna forget you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a huge part of culture in I hate to just say it this way, but in the ghettos. In the ghettos, it's all about respect, man. If you don't step up when somebody shoots, one of your friends, you're a coward. You know what I mean? It makes you look bad, and we can't
ostracize. You're out. You're exiled from the group.
You lose status. You lose status.
Yes. You lose status, meaning that you can't mate, meaning that you can't have a family, meaning that you're outside the community.
Exactly.
It's as if you're dead. And this is very similar to tribal societies or traditional societies, whereas you have this strong emphasis on honor and family and filial duty. Filial duty and doing the right thing for your family and all this stuff. It's very much ingrained.
We need to keep in mind that just because things right now aren't tribal doesn't mean they won't become tribal when situations unfold. That's all I'll say about that. But, let's talk real quickly about the role of the rifle in how you see that unfolding, because with the pistol being as problematic as it is, the rifle is even more niche. And given that we've talked a lot about how the pistol is your primary, but let's talk about why that is. Tell me your thoughts on the rifle in that situation.
Well, the way I look at the rifle here in Lebanon is I train with rifle as much as I can, the AK platform usually. I love it. It's really nice. But unless shit really hits the fan, there's a very, very low probability that I'll go for the rifle. And this is what a lot of people here don't understand. Even in collapsed societies, a rifle has a specific profile. It has a specific size. It is not discreet. You cannot carry it, even if it has a folding stock. The only exception is the AKS-74U, the super small AK-74, right? That's a beauty. This is a rifle that is totally discreet, extremely small, etc., etc. A carbine length or a full length rifle will still be. It will still telegraph your intent. It will still show people that I'm here. I'm going to war.
I'm a combatant.
This is why, I'm a combatant, and it's like having it's like being an NCO and parading in front of enemy snipers. You're gonna be shot. not fun, right? So the rifle has its place, but it's some things that you're going to be used very seldomly. And in case you do use it, yeah, it means the shit really hits the fan.
It's got to be.
There's no two way about it. You're using it because immediate death if it's not used. You're gonna die. You're gonna get shot up. You're gonna die. One of the things that I always remember is the how do you call them, the Koreans back when you had the LA riots, right? If you look at those people in this particular case, they used rifles because it was a large number of looters, right? The rooftop Koreans. So sometimes you need a rifle. You need a rifle to reach out and touch someone who's far away. Now, in a civil war situation, we're talking you're non-combatant. I'm not saying that you're affiliated with any militia. You may have sympathies for some and being against other people, but sometimes it would be smart to understand how to use your rifle in a way that is discreet and deniable. Meaning, I will not shoot at people from my fucking balcony. I will not shoot at people from my window. I will not show that there is a sniper or a shooter here. What I might do is I might camouflage an entire room in a different building. I will put mats. I will put mattresses on the walls everywhere. I will cut a small circular wall on the glass of the window. I will stay as much as I can inside the room, and I will take the lights off, and I will shoot one shot at one target, and then I will disappear. This is how you're going to be using the rifle if you're talking about counterinsurgency. Any other use of the rifle is in a direct attack upon you and your family. Let's say you're in a convoy, you're going from one place to another place, and people start shooting at you. Now, unless you have the short AKS-74U on your lap or an MP5K, both extremely interesting and extremely desirable, but not really practical for most people because of the range. What's going to happen is you're going to get your ass off the vehicle, get your family off the vehicle, and then you will open the car trunk and you'll take the rifle, or you'll pull the rifle from its hiding place, and if you need to, you're going to start using it. You guys did a very nice video about this. Most people probably didn't give it the attention it deserved. It probably went above people's heads, but I think this is the proper engagement of the rifle in a post-collapse society.
I mean, I obviously agree with you very much so. So, the first and foremost priority is always evacuate the vehicle, and especially if you have family in the same vehicle as you and it takes fire, you need to get away to draw the fire away. And that's one of the only reasons I could see a dirty side bailout is to literally distract somebody from firing at your vehicle. So they do see you, they do track you, and you can get somewhere else while your family or your people who are not combatants.
True. Because I'd rather they shoot at me than they shoot at the car where my family is still in, right? So I'll give them a moving target. Good luck with that. You can learn to sprint, right?
Exactly. And we say that all the time. Like, if you're not doing sprints, you're wrong. You should be able to sprint, at least 400 meters, and that's all out. That's a minute of hard running. You should be able to do that.
That's going to be hard on your joints if you haven't done it for a long time. It's going to be hard if you're carrying, because don't forget, if you're in a it's the sad situation, you're not going to be carrying 25 mags. You're going to probably be carrying some food, some water, a couple of mags for your rifle, a couple of mags for your pistol, and some discreet, some way to actually camouflage all that stuff, like a backpack or something, just to give the impression that you're not a soldier or a militiaman or whatever. You're just a regular civilian. You're a refugee going from place A to place B, and so you don't actually look threatening.
Yeah, you want to look uninteresting, as interesting as possible, so people see you're like, get out of here. One of the ways that I've always thought, and this is, fallen out of favor because, again, a lot of people here don't like shotguns, but the handgun is to the self what the shotgun is to the home and what the rifle is to the community. So my personal philosophy on rifles is it's to mount a community defense. It's for when you have a group of people who have to stand up their own defenses, and that's, you could sub in a rifle home defense too, and I'm fine with that. I don't have any real hard allegiances to this concept, but I do think it's a useful guide and definitely applies to the situations that are kind of unfolding there.
Yeah, the thing about the shotgun, it's the poor man's rifle. And this is something that I was taught when I was training in Switzerland. The trainer, he knew I was from Lebanon. He thought it was I lived in some mud hut in the desert. He told me in French, travail en pauvre, work like a poor man does, meaning the poor man's weapon. The poor man's weapon is a shotgun, even if it's a side-by-side or a barrel on top of a barrel or a single-shot barrel shotgun. You're still sending down 9 pellets of 32 caliber lead to a single bad guy. So it's like you're shooting the guy like 9 times with a piece of shit .32 ACP, which, even though it's a crap caliber, you're shooting it from a rifle, so a lot more velocity, it's going to hurt a lot more, etc., etc. So, and the shotgun does not look evil, which you talked about earlier, right? Even the most evil Democrat will not confiscate shotguns immediately because they say, oh, it's a hunting weapon, right?
Yep. Even Joe Biden can't.
Even the Joe Biden fucker said, use your shotgun, right?
Exactly. But and I think that kind of rounds out the thinking for weapons in this case. And actually, we've got to conclude the podcast. And what I would say is, as always, and thank you again. I always love talking to you. I think that your insights are great. We think very similarly, and my heart goes out to you and your family having to deal with this situation. But I think it's going to be pretty universal before long, and we're all going to be dealing with the same troubles.
Yeah, unfortunately, because people rely too much on flash, not substance. So unfortunately, but it's okay. We lived through worse, right? And we're gonna live through this one as well. Hopefully, things are not gonna get this bad. But in case they do, well, we'll find a way. We'll find a way. We always do.
Yes, sir. And I trust you to both be an asset and to carry the fire. So thank you again.
Sir. It will be a pleasure.
And let's do it again here soon, and we'll give the listeners an update, and we'll talk maybe more on some of these topics more specifically.
Sure. Thanks a lot, bro, and be safe out there.
You too. And this concludes ISG podcast number 7 with George. All right. Thank you. And if you want to get a hold of George, his website is salvosmodum.com. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, true. That's it. And it's also survivalmethod.net in case people are not too fond of Latin.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, please check him out. He's very complimentary. ISG and Salvos Modum definitely are like minds. So thank you again, and I'm going to end the recording here.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You too.